Hallelujah! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Hallelujah. And welcome to part 2 of our Easter special presentation on Saturday Cappuccino with the Saints. And in this episode, because the first one was it was too much for one episode. And this episode is going to be very interesting. We're going to talk about all of the Easter traditions from around the world. It's going to be a very interesting episode. So I hope you enjoy. And of course, as the most important feast day in Christianity, the celebration of Easter is a big deal. And all across the world, Easter burst forth with color and ancient symbolism. In Florence, we have the Scoppio del Carro, the explosion of the cart, which fills the city with fireworks, a tradition dating back to the Crusades. The Scoppio del Carro, the explosion of the cart, is Florence's most dramatic and symbolically charged Easter ritual, a fusion of medieval pageantry, crusader legend, and liturgical theater. It unfolds on Easter Sunday in front of the Duomo and has been performed in a recognizable form like this for centuries. The tradition traces its roots to Pazzino de Pazzi, a Florentine knight who fought in the First Crusade. According to tradition, he was the first to scale the walls of Jerusalem in 1099 and was rewarded with 3 flints from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. These stones became Florence's holy fire, used to kindle the Easter flame each year. Over time, the ritual evolved from carrying torches lit from the flints to transporting the flame on a cart, which eventually merged with fireworks and civic celebration. On Easter morning, a towering ornate wagon 2 to 3 stories high, and built in 1622, is pulled through the streets by a white oxen decorated with garlands. The procession includes drummers, flag throwers, musicians, historical reenactors in medieval costume, and civic and church officials. The cart is brought to rest between the baptistry of San Giovanni and the cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore. Inside the Duomo, a priest strikes Pazzino's flints to spark the Easter candle, which then lights coals that are placed on the cart. At that moment, the Gloria is sung during the Mass. The Archbishop lights a small rocket shaped like dove, the colombino, symbolizing the Holy Spirit. I've often said, everything can always be made better with the addition of a dove rocket. And this dove rocket shoots along a wire from the high altar out of the cathedral doors and into the cart. When the colombino hits the cart, it ignites a massive display of firecrackers, spinning wheels, cascading sparks, and bursts of color. The cart itself is not destroyed during this, and it has been used for over 500 years, but the fireworks erupt from its exterior in a spectacular show. A smooth flight of the dove and a complete ignition of the fireworks are considered omens of good fortune and a prosperous harvest for Florence. This ritual blends religious symbolism, the holy fire from Jerusalem, used by the flints, with the joy of the resurrection. Civic pride, Florence's medieval heritage and communal identity are on full display, and agrarian hope, the belief that a successful explosion ensures a fruitful year. It is one of the few European Easter traditions that still preserves such a vivid combination of liturgy, legend, and civic spectacle. In Spain, Holy Week's solemn processions give way to Easter dances, music, and feasts. Easter in Spain centers on the Semana Santa, a week-long fusion of Catholic devotion, medieval pageantry, and regional identity. It is one of the most elaborate and emotionally charged Easter observances in Europe, defined by solemn processions, artistic floats, and centuries-old brotherhood traditions. Semana Santa runs from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, with the most intense events on Maundy, Thursday, and Good Friday. It is not a single celebration, but a tapestry of local traditions shaped by history, art, and community identity. Key elements include these elaborate processions that wind through city streets, often lasting hours. The brotherhoods that have been formed, the cofradías that have been preserved these rituals since the 16th century. These giant floats, called pesos or pasos, that depict scenes from the Passion or images of the Virgin Mary. Penitents in robes with their pointed hoods are probably the most stunning visual element of the ceremonies, symbolize repentance. Bands playing solemn marches and drums with trumpets are a common element. These processions are not theatrical performances, but acts of devotion, often carried out barefoot or in silence. The processions are the defining feature of the Easter season in Spain. They vary widely by region, but share several core elements. One, these pesos, these enormous ornate floats. Some are Baroque originals that have been around for hundreds of years, and they're carried by teams of people hidden beneath the surface. The Nazarenos, which are members of the brotherhoods that wear the long robes with the tall pointed hoods, carrying candles or crosses. Mourners are often present, women in black dresses and lace mantillas, symbolizing grief for Christ. Cities like Seville, Granada, Zamora, and other places are especially renowned for their processions, each with their own emotional tone, from Seville's exuberance to Zamora's stark solemnity. Semana Santa's structure took place in the 16th century, when brotherhoods were formalized to organize passion processions. During the Spanish Baroque period, the tradition expanded with dramatic sculptures and richly decorated pesos that remain central to today. These rituals were designed to make the Passion story visible and emotionally immediate for the public, a name they still achieve. While Spain does not emphasize chocolate eggs or bunnies, Easter brings its own culinary traditions. Tortillas, bread that's been soaked in milk or wine and fried and then coated in sugar or honey. Paella de Vigilia, a Lenten stew of chickpeas, spinach, and cod. There's a thing called buñuelos, which are fried dough balls, sometimes filled with cream. Monos de Pasquilla, festive cakes or sweetbreads. They're especially popular in Catalonia and Valencia. These foods, and you know me, I love talking about holiday foods, reflect the transition from Lenten fasting to Easter celebration. Spain's regions expressed Easter with distinct character. Seville is probably the most famous with its Semana Santa, with over 60 of these brotherhoods leading these emotional processions. Malaga includes military participation, such as the Spanish Legion carrying Christ's image. Castilla de Leon is known for its austere, silent processions in cities like Zamora and Salamanca. And Catalonia and Valencia combine processions with festive Easter Monday picnics. So they continue it on past Lent. Each city's Holy Week is a reflection of its history, spirituality, and artistic heritage. After the days of solemnity, the day of resurrection brings a shift to joy. Some towns hold encounter rituals, which are dramatic reenactments of the risen Christ meeting the Virgin Mary. You'll see we talk about this again when we get to the Philippines. Others celebrate with fireworks, music, and family gatherings. Spanish Easter is distinct for its scale. Entire cities come together and transform into open-air sanctuaries. Its artistry, centuries-old sculptures carried as a living devotion. Its emotional range, from silent mourning to triumphant celebration. And community continuity. These brotherhoods that carry these floats have been passed along from generation to generation for hundreds of years. It is both a religious pilgrimage and a cultural experience, offering one of the most immersive passion narratives in the world. In Poland, families bring baskets of food for the Świąteczna blessing. Świąteczna is the Holy Saturday blessing of Easter baskets in Poland, a ritual that blends early medieval Christian practice with Polish aesthetics, symbolism, and family tradition. My late father-in-law was Slavic, and he talked about something similar that happened when he was a kid, where on the day before Easter, the family would take all the food up to the church and the priest would bless it. I think that's just a neat tradition, and I remember him talking about it many years ago. It sounds cool. It is one of the most beloved moments of the Easter season, marked by beauty, community, and deep religious meaning. Svajkanka is the act of bringing carefully prepared baskets of Easter foods to the church on Holy Saturday to be blessed by the priest, a custom which dates back to the 7th century, with the modern form, including bread and eggs, becoming widespread in the 12th century. The blessing marks the end of Lent and prepares families for the joyful Easter Sunday breakfast. Families take great pride in the beauty and symbolism of the basket. They are decorated with white linen or lace cloth, which line the basket, symbolizing purity. There's boxwood sprigs or pussy willows decorate the handle, representing spring and renewal. And hand-embroidered napkins, some quite elaborate, often cover the food, recalling Christ's burial and shroud. The care and creativity of the basket are part of the joy of the tradition, and many people enjoy admiring one another's arrangements at church. Each item in the basket carries symbolic weight, reflecting themes of resurrection, blessing, and the sweetness of new light and life. Common items include eggs, of course, which represent new life and Christ's resurrection, bread, Christ as the bread of life, salt, purification and the call to be the salt of the earth, meat, ham or sausage, joy, abundance, and the end to fasting, no more fish, horseradish, the bitterness of the passion and the strength to endure, butter, often shaped as a lamb, the goodness of Christ. The lamb symbolizes the Lamb of God. I remember several years ago, Mary and I were at the grocery store, and I found, just for Easter, little butters that were created in the shape of a lamb, and we used it at Easter dinner. I've been looking for it ever since. It only showed up that one time. I thought it was really cool. Cheese, which represents moderation and self-discipline. Babka, or other cakes, the sweetness of life and the gifts of the baker. These symbolic meanings are widely recognized in Polish tradition and are consistently listed in guides to Svajkanka customs. At church, baskets are placed on long tables or carried forward in a procession. The priest or deacon prays 3 specific blessing prayers for meat, eggs, and breads, and then sprinkles each basket with holy water. Traditional parishes may use a straw brush, while others use a metal aspergillium. In some rural areas, older customs survive, in which the priests visit homes to bless the food, but most Poles now gather at church. The blessed foods are saved for Easter Sunday breakfast, which becomes a joyful feast of renewal and family unity. In some communities, small portions may be shared on Holy Saturday evening, but the main celebration is reserved for Easter morning. Svajkanka is more than a ritual. It is a cultural touchstone. It expresses the continuity of Polish Catholic identity, the beauty of domestic and communal craftsmanship, and the transition from Lenten austerity to Easter joy, and a shared sense of heritage among Poles worldwide. My father-in-law, who wasn't Polish but he was Slavic, talked about it a lot years ago. It remains one of the most recognizable and cherished Polish Easter traditions, both in Poland and in Polish communities worldwide. And Easter Monday brings Smigus Dingus, a joyful water splashing celebration of new life in Poland. Easter Monday in Poland is a lively blend of Christian symbolism, folk customs, and springtime mischief. It is one of the most recognizable Easter traditions in Central Europe and remains deeply woven into Polish cultural identity. The most iconic feature of Easter Monday is the throwing or sprinkling of water, traditionally by boys onto girls. This custom carries several layers of meaning. Symbolic cleansing. Water represents purification and the end of Lent's austerity. Joyful celebration of spring. The playful dousing echoes older spring rites of renewal. And historical memory. Some scholars connect the practice to the baptism of Poland in 966, when Christianity was formally adopted. In many regions, the water tradition is paired with light tapping using pussy willow branches, a gesture meant to bring health and vitality. Paschal eggs, pasanki, are exchanged as gifts on Easter Monday, symbolizing life and resurrection. Ethiopian Easter, Fasika, is one of the most spiritually intense and culturally rich celebrations in the Christian world. It stands at the center of Ethiopian Orthodox life, shaped by ancient liturgy, rigorous fasting, and a dramatic ritual symbolism. It is far more important than Christmas in Ethiopia, because the resurrection is the theological heart of Ethiopian Christianity. Fasika marks the resurrection of Jesus Christ, celebrated according to the Eastern calendar, which often places it after Western Easter. The celebration is climactic. After weeks of fasting, prayer, and somber reflection, Easter morning erupts into joy, feasting, and communal celebration. Ethiopian Easter is preceded by 55 days of strict fasting, during which Orthodox Christians abstain from all animal products, meat, dairy, eggs, and butter. Many fast daily from 3 p.m., while clergy and devout believers may fast until 6 p.m. This period mirrors Christ's suffering and is considered a time of purification, humility, and spiritual discipline. Holy Week begins with Hosanna, a vibrant celebration of Christ's entry into Jerusalem. Worshippers wear white garments and carry palm branches. In Holy Week, there is a solemn period marked by avoiding handshakes or hugs, recalling Judas's betrayal, and long services focused on Christ's final days. On Holy Thursday, families prepare gulban, a simple symbolic meal recalling the Last Supper and the Exodus. And on Good Friday, the most solemn day of the year, worshippers prostrate repeatedly during long services. Many clergy begin a deep fast that continues until Easter morning. On Holy Saturday, it's a day of quiet prayer and fasting, preparing for the resurrection. The heart of Fasika is the midnight vigil on Holy Saturday. Churches fill with candlelight, chanting, and rhythmic liturgical dance. At midnight, the proclamation of the resurrection is made. Many receive the Eucharist after days of intense fasting. Around 3 a.m., families return home to break the fast. The breaking of the fast is dramatic and joyful. A chicken is slaughtered at midnight, symbolizing the end of fasting. On Easter morning, a sheep is slaughtered, beginning the communal feast. The centerpiece dish is doro wat, a rich, spicy chicken stew served with injera. Families gather to eat, drink tella, which is a traditional beer, and tej, which is honey wine, and celebrate Easter with music and festive dancing. In Egypt, Coptic Christians gather for long solemn liturgies that culminate in joy on Easter. The next day, families celebrate Sham el-Nesem, a spring picnic that predates Christianity but now blends seamlessly with Easter. In the Philippines, Easter begins before dawn with Salubong. Salubong is a pre-dawn Easter ritual that dramatizes the first meeting between the risen Christ and his mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, after the resurrection. It is one of the most emotionally charged and visually theatrical expressions of Filipino Catholicism, blending Spanish-era devotional drama with local creativity and communal participation. Salubong takes place before sunrise on Easter Sunday, when two separate processions begin from different parts of the town. Men carry the image of the risen Christ, often accompanied by statues of the apostles. Women carry the image of the sorrowful mother, veiled in black to signify mourning. These processions converge in a central plaza or churchyard, forming a symbolic meeting point between sorrow and joy, death and resurrection, earth and heaven. The climax of the ritual is the time when Mary's mourning veil is removed. A young girl dressed as an angel is lowered from a structure from inside a decorative banana flower. She lifts the black veil from Mary, revealing her in bright garments. This act signals the end of grief and the triumph of the resurrection. The moment is accompanied by bells, hymns, applause, and sometimes the release of doves or balloons. Salubong is not part of the formal Roman Catholic liturgy, but it is a deeply rooted form of popular piety. It was introduced by Spanish missionaries in the 16th century, and it drew inspiration from medieval European passion plays. Over centuries, it has evolved into a uniquely Filipino ritual, rich with local music, costumes, and choreography. The streets become a kind of sacred theater, where the community participates not as spectators, but as co-celebrants. After the ceremony, families gather for a festive Easter breakfast, featuring biblagaca, puto, and saklet. At its core, salubong expresses Mary's transformation from sorrow to joy, Christ's victory over death, and the community's hope for renewal. It externalizes the resurrection in a way that is visual, communal, and emotionally immediate, making it one of the most beloved Easter traditions in the Philippines. And if you have been following this podcast for a while now, you know I have a particular interest in holiday-themed foods. Well, this Salubong festival seems to have quite a few delicious-sounding treats for the holiday that I would love to try one day. A Filipino Salubong breakfast is simple, warm, and rooted in comfort foods that fit the pre-dawn ritual timing of the ritual. The dishes emphasize softness, warmth, and sweetness, perfect after standing outside in the dark all night waiting for this moment of the reunion of Christ and Mary. These items appear consistently across accounts of Easter morning meals. You have something called pan del sat with hot chocolate, which is a light, familiar pairing often enjoyed by youths after the dawn procession. You have bibingka, a soft, slightly smoky rice cake baked in banana leaves, commonly served at post-salubong gatherings. You have something called puto, steamed rice cakes that are easy to share and often exchanged among neighbors during Holy Week. And saklet, thick Filipino hot chocolate made and traditionally served with rice cakes. And while not exclusive to the immediate post-salubong meal, these foods are strongly associated with Easter morning in Filipino households. You have a soft buttery pastry called ensaymada, which is often enjoyed at Easter breakfast gatherings. And then you have dishes of mild cheese that show up on Easter brunch tables. And something called pinaltak, a coconut milk dessert with rice balls and fruits, often prepared later in the morning after the early breakfast. Because salubong happens before sunrise, the first meal afterward is intentionally light, warm, and communal. Rice cakes and bread are easy to prepare ahead of time, and hot chocolate provides warmth after standing outside in the cool early morning hours. Later in the day, families shift to much richer Easter dishes. In India, the ancient St. Thomas Christian communities celebrate with liturgies that trace their roots to the earliest centuries of the Church. Easter among the St. Thomas Christians of India unfolds as one of the most ancient and symbolically layered Paschal traditions in the Christian world. These communities trace their origins back to the apostolic mission of St. Thomas in 52 AD, and their Easter retains a distinctly Syriac, Semitic, and Indian character, shaped by centuries of continuity. Easter is the central feast of the St. Thomas Christian community, rooted in ancient Syriac Christian worldview, where the resurrection is the victory of life over death. The liturgy, music, and rituals preserve elements of East Syriac and West Syriac rites, depending on the denomination. Across all branches, Easter is preceded by a long period of fasting, which culminates in an all-night vigil on Holy Saturday, and is followed by a communal feast that blends Christian symbolism with Kerala's cultural heritage. Lent is observed with deep seriousness. 50 days of fasting, abstaining from meat and often dairy. Daily prayers intensify throughout Lent, with special emphasis on penitential hymns in Syriac and Malayalam, which is the native language. The Stations of the Cross are prayed every Friday, often outdoors. And this period mirrors the ancient discipline of the early Malabar Church, which had strong ties to the Church of the East. On Palm Sunday, referred to as Asana, Processions with palm leaves or coconut fronds commence. Children often carry decorated palm crosses. And the liturgy includes the ancient Syriac cry, Hosanna to the Son of David. On Maundy Thursday, you have the washing of the feet, which is performed by bishops and priests, following the West Syriac and East Syriac traditions. The Eucharist commemorates both the Last Supper and the institution of the priesthood. On Good Friday, called Dukandrana, is the most solemn day in Kerala's Christian calendar. A long service centered on the Passion narrative takes place, often lasting 3 to 4 hours. The faithful venerate the cross in a ritual called the Adoration of the Cross. In many churches, a symbolic burial of Christ takes place. On Holy Saturday, you have a day of silence and expectation with readings from the Old Testament that foreshadow the resurrection. And the Easter celebration begins late on Holy Saturday night. Church is darkened completely. The Paschal fire is blessed outside the church. And the Easter proclamation is sung in Syriac. The resurrection is announced at midnight with bells, drums, and the lighting of hundreds of candles, which you see on your screen here. This vigil is the liturgical climax of the St. Thomas tradition, echoing the ancient Christian practice of nighttime Paschal celebrations. After the long fast, Easter morning is a joyful explosion of food and community. Families prepare appam, which is a stew made from duck roast and other Kerala specialties. In some communities, a sweet dish called pachuru, which is milk rice, is served. The meal is shared with extended family and neighbors, including those of other faiths, reflecting Kerala's pluralistic culture. Easter in the St. Thomas Church is not merely a liturgical event. It is a living expression of a 2,000-year-old Christian community that has preserved its identity through colonial pressures, schisms, and cultural change. The celebration embodies both ancient Syriac Christianity and Indian cultural heritage, making it one of the most distinctive Easter traditions in the world. Across Latin America, Easter is a festival of color. Easter in Mexico unfolds across 2 full weeks, starting with Semana Santa on Holy Week and Semana de Pascua, which is Easter week, making it one of the country's most important annual observances. Nearly 80% of Mexicans are Catholic, and the season blends Spanish colonial traditions with indigenous symbolism. Key traditions of the season are the Passion plays. Dramatic reenactments of Christ's trial, suffering, and crucifixion dominate many towns, especially on Good Friday. Palm Sunday, woven palm crosses are blessed and carried in processions, reenacting Christ's entry into Jerusalem. The visiting of 7 churches on Maundy Thursday. Many Catholics visit 7 churches to recall Christ's final hours. Good Friday silence. Church bells fall silent. Processions carry statues of Christ and the Virgin Mary in complete silence. And then the burning of Judas on Easter Sunday or during the Semana de Pascua. Communities burn effigies of Judas in a symbolic act of justice. A picture of this ceremony is on your screen. Foods associated with these festivals are seafood, obviously dominates the Good Friday meals, with pescado de Veracruz and shrimp empanadas, and it topped off with the beloved bread pudding that's served. Guatemala's Semana Santa, especially in Antigua, is considered one of the most spectacular in the world. It fuses Catholic devotion with Mayan aesthetics, producing visually stunning and deeply communal celebrations. Some key traditions are the alfombras, which are these sawdust carpets. Streets are transformed into these intricate carpets made of colored sawdust, flowers, pine needles, and fruit. These masterpieces are created overnight and destroyed just within hours as processions pass over them. There's a picture of one of them on your screen. I mean, it's just amazing. You have these massive processions. Men called cucachuros carry these enormous wooden floats depicting scenes of the Passion. Women in black follow with images of the Virgin Mary. You have a couple of Good Friday superstitions that are they're just interesting to note. Folklore warns that swimming on Good Friday may turn you into a fish, or climbing a tree may give you a tail. Now, I'm not buying that, but I just think it's interesting. And it's obviously some echoes of Mayan storytelling that has been woven in to this Christian observance. I don't think if you go swimming on Good Friday, you're going to turn into a fish. But hey, maybe you should not do it. You have Holy Saturday vigils, which candlelight vigils lead into midnight celebrations. This is universal throughout the world. You have Easter Sunday fireworks. The somber mood breaks into joyful fireworks and white robe processions celebrating the resurrection. And of course, you got to mention food. Guatemalan Easter cuisine includes fried tilapia, cod stews, garbanzo dulces, and molitas, reflecting both Lenten restraint and festive indulgence. They do it up big in Brazil. Brazil's Easter is both deeply Catholic and culturally exuberant. It spans solemn Holy Week rituals and joyful family gatherings, with regional variations shaped by Portuguese, African, and indigenous influences. Some key traditions, like some of the other countries we've been talking about, they also have Semana Santa processions. Palm Sunday begins the week of ceremonies, weaving palm crosses, prayers, and community rituals. But the thing they're most known for are these passion plays. Brazil hosts some of the world's largest passion reenactments, especially the famous open-air theater in Nova Jerusalem that you see here on your screen. I mean, this is just an enormous production. They do it up right and big in Brazil. It makes me wish we could have such a national celebration of Easter, the most important event in world history, like this here in the United States. Good Friday features salted cod, while Easter Sunday brings sweets and the iconic oversized chocolate eggs that Brazil is famous for. Like I said, they do it up big in Brazil. And if there's a country that does it even bigger than Brazil, it's got to be Greece. Easter in Greece, Pascha, is the most important religious and cultural celebration in the country, surpassing even Christmas in scale and emotional intensity. It unfolds over weeks of preparation, a deeply symbolic Holy Week, and a resurrection night that transforms every village, island, and city into a sea of candlelight. The 7-week fast shapes the entire lead up to Easter. Many Greeks follow a vegan-style diet with seafood allowed, and restaurants offer special fasting dishes. Clean Monday marks the beginning of this period with kite flying and outdoor meals. Holy Week is a national rhythm of anticipation. Each day carries its own liturgies, household tasks and preparations, from collecting vines on Holy Monday to dyeing the iconic red eggs on Holy Thursday. Good Friday is one of the most solemn days of the Greek year. Girls decorate the epitaphio, a flower-covered funeral bier representing Christ's tomb. At night, entire towns follow candlelight processions through the streets, accompanied by slow hymns and bells. Just before midnight, churches go dark. The priest emerges with the holy light, chanting, "Christ is risen." The flame spreads from candle to candle until the entire crowd glows with light. Bells ring, fireworks erupt, and families carry their candles home to mark a soot cross above their doorway for protection. This moment, joyful, communal, and luminous, is the emotional heart of Greek Easter. After the midnight liturgy, families break the fast with margritsa, a traditional soup. On Easter Sunday, the celebration becomes a feast. They have roast lamb or goat, often cooked on a spit. They have a sweet braided bread with red eggs called sureki. We see a picture of it on the screen. They have egg-cracking games symbolizing the breaking of the tomb. The day feels like a joyful outdoor festival with music, dancing, and long family meals. While the core rituals are universal, each region adds its own color and twist. Such is one of the most unusual, the tradition in Corfu of throwing pots out the window on Holy Saturday morning. The pot throwing of Corfu, and they're called the Botides, is one of the most dramatic and symbolically rich Easter customs in Greece. It takes place on Holy Saturday at 11 a.m., before the midnight resurrection celebration, and marks what the Corfiats, those are people who live in Corfu, call the first resurrection. The tradition blends Orthodox theology, Venetian influence, and ancient Greek seasonal rites, creating a unique expression of joy, renewal, and cosmic upheaval. When the church bells ring out the first resurrection on Holy Saturday morning, the people of Corfu throw these huge clay pots from balconies into the streets below. The explosive crash symbolizes the earthquake at Christ's resurrection, when the stone was rolled away from the tomb, the shattering of death's power, a physical enactment of Paschal's victory, the casting away of misfortune, clearing space for new blessings. The sound is meant to be overwhelming, an eruption of joy before the solemnity of the night gives way to Easter. These botides are large clay jugs with narrow necks and two handles. They are decorated with red ribbons, the color of Corfu, and a symbol of Christ's blood and good luck. They are often filled with water to make the impact even louder. As soon as they shatter, the city's philharmonic band strike up triumphant music, turning the streets into a festival. Beyond its historical roots, locals see this as a method of driving away evil and bad luck, announcing the end of winter's lethargy, and celebrating the renewal of life, both spiritual and natural. Visitors often scramble to collect shards of the broken pots, which are all considered good luck charms. And if I had my choice of an Easter celebration from another country, I would most like for America to adopt, it would be this one, the Chios Rocket War on Holy Saturday. Frankly, this looks like a blast. My second choice would have to be the rocket dove shooting off all those fireworks in Florence, but this looks even cooler. The Chios Rocket War, called the Rocket Polemos, is one of the most dramatic and visually striking Easter traditions in Greece. It takes place in a town of Rotundos on the island of Chios, where two rival parishes fire tens of thousands of homemade rockets at each other's church in a symbolic battle on the night of Holy Saturday. The custom blends Orthodox Easter joy with local rivalry, Ottoman-era folklore, and a uniquely Greek sense of spectacle. The exact beginnings of the Rocket War are not fully documented, but several strands of tradition converge. A lot of this came out of the Ottoman period. Local legend says the custom began when real cannons were used during Easter celebrations until Ottoman authorities banned them in 1889. Villagers replaced them with homemade rockets to preserve the celebratory explosions. Fireworks have always been a Paschal celebration in Greece, and in Italy too. Lighting fireworks at the Paschal Vigil is a widespread Greek custom. Chios amplified it into a full-scale ritualized contest. And there's a local rivalry that's been involved with this. The two parishes, Agios Markos and Panagia Erythenia, I'm completely mispronouncing these, so forgive me, sit on opposing hilltops about 400 meters apart, creating a natural arena for the tradition. These elements fused into a ritual that is now central to Chios' identity. On Holy Saturday night, as the resurrection liturgy approaches midnight, the two parishes begin firing tens of thousands of homemade rockets across the valley. The goal is to hit the opposing church's bell tower, a symbolic victory. Rockets are launched from wooden platforms lined with hundreds of grooves. Churches and nearby homes are heavily protected with metal sheets and mesh to prevent damage, so no one's hurt by this. It's all in good fun. The battle, quote unquote, continues until midnight, when Christ is risen, a proclamation is made. The next morning, each parish counts the hits on the other's bell tower, but both holies claim victory, ensuring that the tradition continues the following year. The rockets are handmade by local teams. A small head of the rocket is packed with a gunpowder-based propellant, a long wooden stick guide for stability, and they are fired in these massive volleys, creating arcs of orange light across the night sky. This craftsmanship is part of the community's pride in preparation for Easter. And the Rocket War is more than just a spectacle. It's a ritual of joyful defiance rooted in Ottoman-era restrictions, communal identity with each parish rallying behind its team, and Easter triumph transforming the night sky into a celebration of the resurrection. And despite concerns about noise and property damage, and there's always somebody who's complaining, the event remains a major draw and a cherished local tradition. It was briefly canceled in 2016 due to complaints, but revived in 2017 with new safety regulations. No doubt lawyers were involved. While most of Greece celebrates Easter with candles, bells, and fireworks, Chios transforms the night into a ritualized contest. It stands alongside Corfu's pot throwing as one of the most distinctive regional expressions of Pascha. And I have said this before, but no group does Easter better than the Greeks. And I stand by that statement. They do Easter up right. And of course, no discussion of how Easter is celebrated around the world would be complete without a discussion of how it is celebrated in Jerusalem, where the first Easter actually occurred. And on Holy Saturday, the most dramatic and miraculous of all the Easter traditions occurs every year at Easter, the Holy Fire ritual in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Holy Fire ritual in Jerusalem is the most dramatic and ancient Easter ceremony in the Eastern Christian world. It takes place every Holy Saturday inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the site that contains both Golgotha and the tomb of Christ. What makes it unique is that for over a millennium, there is a belief that a miraculous flame appears inside the tomb as a sign of Christ's resurrection. The ceremony unfolds in a tightly choreographed sequence inside the packed rotunda of the Holy Sepulchre. Early on Holy Saturday, Israeli authorities and representatives of various Christian communities inspect the tomb to ensure that there are no hidden fire sources are present. The tomb is then sealed with wax and ribbons bearing the seal of the Greek Orthodox Patriarch. By midday, thousands of pilgrims fill the church, carrying bundles of 33 unlit candles, symbolizing Christ's 33 years. A solemn procession of Orthodox clergy circles the edicule, the small shrine over the tomb that you see on your screen, 3 times. The Greek Orthodox Patriarch removes his ornate vestments, wearing only a simple white garment, and enters the sealed tomb alone. Before entering, he is searched to ensure that he carries no matches or fire-making tools. Inside, he kneels before the stone slab that was the resting place of Christ's body and prays in darkness. According to Orthodox tradition, a miraculous light appears inside the tomb, sometimes described as a blue or shimmering light, and ignites the Patriarch's candles without human intervention. He then emerges from the tomb, holding 2 lit candles, and the church erupts in shouts of "Christ is risen." The flame spreads rapidly through the church as pilgrims light their candles from one another. The fire is then carried to Orthodox countries across the world: Greece, Serbia, Russia, Romania, Georgia, and others, often by special flights. The holy fire represents the light of the resurrection emerging from the tomb, Christ's victory over death and darkness. The renewal of creation, echoing "Let light shine out of the darkness" from 2 Corinthians. The unity of the Orthodox world as the flame is shared globally. Pilgrims often say that the flame does not burn their skin in the first 30 minutes after this miracle, a sign of its sacred nature. And you can often see pictures of people holding their hand over the flame that they're carrying. It's really amazing. You should look it up. The ritual has deep historical roots. In the 4th century, early accounts describe this light-related ceremonies taking place at the tomb, including the pilgrim Agiria, who reported on it from 381 to 384 AD. In the 9th century, Bernard the monk records lamps inside the tomb igniting miraculously. In the 12th century, Crusader chronicles describe the descent of the holy fire as a well-established miracle at that time. And in the modern era, the ceremony continues every year, drawing thousands of pilgrims and global media attention. I mean, if you go on YouTube and just type in Orthodox Holy Fire of Easter, you're going to see lots of videos about it. It's really quite something. A related miracle story from 162 AD describes Bishop Narcissus ordering lamps to be filled with water and then burned as if filled with oil. The holy fire is not simply a ceremony. it is the spiritual climax of Orthodox Easter. And finally, we come to the United States. And look, I'm going to editorialize a bit here, but our national Easter celebrations are frankly lame. We here in the United States, and I'm going to throw Great Britain in here as well, have completely secularized our celebrations of Easter and have totally lost the plot. We could learn a thing or two from the Greeks. A few years ago, I saw a YouTube video about an interview that David Cameron, the former Prime Minister of the UK, gave around Easter about 10 or so years ago. In it, as the reporter noted that Easter was fast approaching, she asked the Prime Minister if he had any thoughts on the meaning and significance of Easter that he would like to share with the country. And he said, and I quote, "The meaning of Easter is kindness, compassion, hard work, and responsibility." Okay. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for kindness, compassion, hard work, and responsibility. I mean, who isn't? But that is a rather bland and beige understanding of the meaning of Easter. I mean, who could possibly not be for such things? You would expect Jesus would at least merit a mention, right? I mean, even if only in passing. I don't know much, but I am positive this is not the meaning of Easter. Now, I don't mean to mock poor old David Cameron, target rich environment though he may be. He's a politician after all, and as we all know, they are famous, or infamous, for such weaselly, high-sounding yet ultimately inoffensive commentary that usually says much and means absolutely nothing. They are trained for such things. But he is Exhibit A here in the case that we as a culture have put Easter on a leash. And a good example of this is how we really celebrate Easter in this country. We may imagine that our stated ideals, or what we present to the world as our deepest cultural values, like our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, but the truth is, our commercial culture is a far more influential force in the world and a more powerful megaphone of our actual lived cultural values than anything we like to pretend to say we believe. And how a culture celebrates its festivals and holidays says much about the content of what values it truly holds sacred. And celebrate we sure like to do. I mean, this is America, right? No one observes holidays like us, especially if there's a way to make money off of them. I mean, we are the most holiday-centric society on the planet, and we go all out for everything from Christmas to Halloween, St. Patrick to St. Valentine, Thanksgiving to July 4th, and even throw in a few completely made-up holidays, like Toyotathon and Happy Honda Days, thrown in for good measure. And yet, what about Easter? It is the most significant day on the Christian calendar, after all. How is it celebrated commercially? Rabbits, plastic grass, colored eggs, and candy. Lots and lots of candy. Now, I'm not sure what any of these things have to do with the true meaning of Easter, but I could see a good case could be made that Reese's peanut butter eggs might be construed as a sign of God's love for us. But the truth is, none of those things even hint at the reality of Easter. Jesus and the resurrection are nowhere to be seen, which, last time I checked, is sort of the main plot line of Easter, right? And I think the reason is, we, especially in our secularized culture, don't know what to do with Easter. We have stripped it of its significance and impact and replaced it with some sort of vague, bland, feel-good spring festival. We have domesticated it totally and have put Easter on a short leash. We have lost not only the meaning of Easter, but we have lost the sheer strangeness and explosive nature of Easter. I mean, the Greeks get this right. And strange and explosive it was, and still is. And look, don't leave hateful comments on this channel because I'm attacking the Easter bunny or colored eggs or candy. I'm not. I'm a big fan of all those things. I mean, look, one of my fondest childhood memories is of me getting my Easter basket on Easter morning. And Mary and I, for years, used to decorate eggs with our nephews when they were small. So I love these old traditions. But these traditions, especially as they have been stripped of their religious connotations, have completely overshadowed the real Easter. And I think most Americans have no idea about the religious roots of some of these secular Easter traditions. And there are religious roots to all of them. So we'll start with this one. So how did these eggs get associated with Easter in the first place? It is a very interesting story. The Easter egg tradition grows out of a long layered history where ancient symbolism, early Christian practice, and medieval European customs all converge into the familiar rituals of dyeing, decorating, gifting, and hunting eggs. At its core, the egg became a perfect vessel for expressing themes of rebirth, renewal, and resurrection, first in nature religions, then in Christianity, and finally in global folk culture. Across the ancient world, eggs symbolized life emerging from apparent lifelessness. Civilizations such as the Persians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans exchanged eggs during spring festivals, marking the vernal equinox, celebrating the Earth's awakening after winter. These eggs were often decorated and offered to deities associated with fertility and agricultural abundance. This symbolism was so widespread that decorated ostrich eggs appear in graves as early as 5,000 years ago, linking eggs to themes of death and rebirth long before Christianity. I mean, an example of this is shown here on your screen. When Christianity spread through the Near East and Mediterranean, early believers reinterpreted these old egg traditions through the lens of the resurrection. The earliest known Christian Easter eggs came from Mesopotamia, where Christians dyed eggs red to symbolize the blood of Christ shed at the crucifixion. The egg structure itself became symbolic. The shell was the sealed tomb. Breaking the shell was Christ rising from the dead, and the new life inside represented the resurrection. This made the egg a natural emblem of Easter, the feast of new life. By the Middle Ages, the church prohibited eating eggs during Lent, the 40-day fast before Easter. Hens, of course, kept right on laying, so we were getting a lot of them by the end of Lent. Families collected and preserved these eggs, and by Easter Sunday they had a basket full, ready to be blessed, eaten, and shared as part of the feast breaking the fast. This practical surplus reinforced the egg's spiritual meaning. Just as the chick breaks free from its shell, Christ breaks free from the tomb. By the Middle Ages, egg decorating had become a refined folk art across Central and Eastern Europe. The Ukrainian pisanki and the Polish pisanki and Romanian painted eggs developed intricate symbolic patterns using natural dyes, wax resist techniques, and regional motifs. These traditions preserved both Christian and pre-Christian symbolism, sunbursts, plants, crosses, and geometric patterns, turning the Easter egg into a cultural treasure. I mean, on your screen is an example of a Ukrainian Easter egg. I mean, they are just absolutely amazing pieces of art. And no doubt, the most exquisite, elaborate, and expensive Easter eggs ever produced in history were made by the Fabergé Company for the Romanov dynasty in Russia. The Romanov Easter egg tradition refers to the extraordinary jewel-encrusted imperial Fabergé eggs created for the last two Russian czars, Alexander III and Nicholas II, as lavish Easter gifts for their wives and mothers. These eggs became some of the most iconic objects of Imperial Russia, blending Orthodox symbolism, dynastic propaganda, and unmatched craftsmanship. The tradition began in 1885, when Tsar Alexander III commissioned a special Easter gift for his wife, and he turned to the young master goldsmith Peter Carl Fabergé, who produced the now famous hen egg, a simple white enamel shell that opened to reveal a golden yolk, a golden hen, and a tiny crown with a ruby pennant pendant inside. This became the first of 50 imperial Fabergé eggs created for the Romanovs. In the Russian Orthodox world, Easter, Pascha, is the most important feast of the year. Exchanging eggs, these decorated eggs symbolized the resurrection and new life, royal generosity and blessing, and dynastic continuity. The Romanovs elevated this custom into a spectacular art form, turning the humble egg into a symbol of imperial majesty. When Nicholas II became Tsar in 1894, he continued the tradition, commissioning 2 eggs each year, one for his mother and the Dowager Empress, and the other for his wife, the Empress Alexandria. These eggs often celebrated things like the coronations, births of royal children, military victories, there weren't a lot of those to celebrate, and Romanov anniversaries. The most famous example is the Romanov anniversary egg from 1913, marking 300 years of Romanov rule. It featured portraits of 18 Romanov rulers and a rotating globe showing the empire's expansion from 1613 to 1913. The eggs were not merely decorative, they were political and spiritual objects. They conveyed Orthodox devotion through icons, saints, and Easter themes, imperial power through eagles, crowns, and maps, dynastic pride through portraits and family symbols. Some eggs even included miniature replicas of palaces, royal yachts, or historical scenes. The tradition ended abruptly with the Russian Revolution of 1917, of course, and many eggs were seized by the Bolsheviks and later sold abroad to raise funds. A few remained in Russia, now housed in the Kremlin armory. Others surfaced in surprising places. One was famously rediscovered by a scrap metal dealer in the U.S. in 2014, and it was identified as a lost imperial egg worth over $30 million. Now, why can't I stumble across something like that in the garbage? And if you happen to live in Richmond, Virginia, you can go to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts and see the largest collection of Romanov eggs outside of Russia. I will say I've been many, many times, and it is definitely worth the visit. And over time, the egg tradition evolved. Chocolate eggs emerged in the 19th century as confectioners experimented with molds that could create them. Egg hunts became a playful way to celebrate spring and family togetherness. Plastic eggs became very popular in the 50s and then onward, and were filled with candy or coins and became very popular in the late 20th century. Many cultures still maintain their older customs, such as red eggs in Greece or the elaborate eggs in Ukraine. Despite these variations, the core symbolism remains: life renewed, hope restored, and joy shared. A particularly interesting Easter egg tradition comes from Germany, the Osterbaum Easter egg trees. Germany is famous for decorating entire trees with painted eggs, sometimes hundreds of them. These Osterbaum Easter egg trees symbolize spring's renewal and the vibrancy of new life. The tradition dates back to noble households in the 18th century. And there is one ancient legend about these eggs with roots directly in the first Easter, and it has been credited with the start of this whole association with colored eggs, especially red, with the Feast of the Resurrection. It is the story of Mary Magdalene and the red egg. The story of Mary Magdalene and the Easter egg comes from a cluster of early Christian legends that use the egg as a symbol of the resurrection, Mary Magdalene's witness, and the triumph of Christ over death. These stories are not found in Scripture, of course, but appear in early Christian tradition, especially in the Eastern churches, and they became the foundation of the custom of coloring eggs red for Easter. The most widespread version tells that after Christ's ascension, Mary Magdalene traveled to Rome to proclaim the gospel. She gained an audience with the Emperor Tiberius and greeted him with the Easter proclamation, "Christ is risen." Holding an egg in her hand, she used it as a symbol of the resurrection. Tiberius mocked her, saying a man rising from the dead was as impossible as the egg turning red. At that moment, the egg miraculously turned a deep red, convincing him of the truth of her testimony. This miracle became a powerful visual metaphor for the resurrection. The egg symbolized the sealed tomb, and the red color symbolized Christ's blood and victory over death. And the transformation symbolized the new life of the resurrection. Another early tradition says that Mary Magdalene brought a basket of white eggs to Christ's tomb on Easter morning. When she discovered the stone rolled away, the eggs in her basket miraculously turned red, marking the moment of resurrection. This version connects the miracle directly to the Easter morning narrative and explains why icons often depict Mary Magdalene holding a red egg, such as you saw in the slide before this one. Mary Magdalene is the first witness of the resurrection in the Gospels, and the one who announces it to the apostles. Early Christians, and still today, referred to her as the apostle to the apostles, because she is the first herald of Easter. Traditions naturally grew around her as the one who brings the good news, symbolized by the egg. In the ancient world, presenting an egg was also a gesture of joy and new life, making it a fitting symbol for her proclamation. These stories, and they're fanciful of course, directly influenced the practice, especially in Eastern Christianity, of dyeing Easter eggs red. The red egg became the symbol of Christ's blood, a sign of the empty tomb, a reminder of Mary Magdalene's bold witness, and a token of Christian hope and rebirth. In many Orthodox cultures today, the first egg dyed is still red and is kept in the home as a blessing for the year. The Mary Magdalene red egg legend is one of the earliest Christian explanations for Easter eggs. It remains the most theologically rich. It also helps explain why Greek Easter eggs are traditionally red, not multicolored. Icons often show Mary Magdalene holding a single red egg, and the egg became a universal Christian symbol of the resurrection. Okay, that explains the Easter egg, but where did that rabbit come from? I mean, why are bunnies so associated with Easter? And, I will add, if you want a little amusement this Easter season, go check out the website sketchybunnies.com. I mean, no doubt there are generations of children that have been traumatized by being taken to the mall to sit on the lap of some rather sketchy and kind of sinister looking men dressed up as the Easter Bunny. I mean, it's hilarious and worth a visit. But the question still remains, what's the deal with the rabbit? The Easter Bunny tradition began in German-speaking Europe, where the figure of the Osterhare, Easter hare, emerged as a springtime judge of children's behavior and a bringer of eggs. Over time, this hare blended Christian Easter symbolism, pagan spring motifs, and folk customs into the familiar character we know today. The earliest written reference to the Easter hare appear in the 16th and 17th century in Germany, where the hare delivered eggs to well-behaved children. This tradition functioned much like a springtime counterpart to Santa Claus. Children made nests for the hare to lay its eggs, and the hare evaluated their behavior. Key elements of the early tradition is it's a hare, not a rabbit. The hare was the original figure, and it laid eggs, a folkloric belief, and hid them in gardens and bushes. Children searched for the eggs in early versions of the Easter egg hunt. German immigrants later brought this custom with them when they came to Pennsylvania in the 1700s, where it spread across the United States and evolved into the modern Easter Bunny. Long before Easter, hares held deep symbolic meaning in Europe. In ancient pagan traditions, the hare was associated with fertility, spring, and renewal, themes that naturally aligned with Easter's message of new life. Some traditions link the hare to a goddess, a Germanic goddess of spring called Oster, whose animal symbol was the rabbit or a hare. In classical antiquity, hares were sacred to Aphrodite and symbolized vitality and desire. Archaeological evidence show that hares were given ritual burials in Neolithic Europe, suggesting a long-standing association with rebirth. These layers of symbolism made the hare a natural fit for a springtime celebration of life. As Christianity spread through Europe, Older spring symbols were reinterpreted through a Christian lens. The hare's association with new life, fertility, and the return of spring aligned well with themes of resurrection and renewal at Easter. Meanwhile, eggs, already a symbol of rebirth, became tied to Easter because they were forbidden during Lent and then were joyfully eaten afterward. So the hare delivering eggs merged these two symbolic traditions into one figure. When German immigrants settled in Pennsylvania in the 1700s, they brought the Oster hare with them. Children built nests for the hare to lay its eggs, and the custom quickly spread. Over time, the hare became a rabbit, which is more familiar to American children. Eggs expanded to include candy, chocolate, and toys. Nests evolved into Easter baskets, and the tradition blended with American-style holiday celebrations and, of course, commercialization. The Easter Bunny persists because it sits at the intersection of ancient spring symbolism, Christian themes of resurrection, the childhood delight and gift-giving, and folk customs that adapt easily across cultures. It's a tradition that both feels ancient and playful, rooted in deep symbolism, yet perfectly suited to modern family celebrations. And how can we discuss Easter, and especially America's contribution to the worldwide celebrations of Easter, without discussing the most American Easter product of all times, Peeps? Peeps became an Easter icon through a mix of regional Pennsylvania candy making, mid-century industrial innovation, and the visual appeal of pastel springtime treats. Their evolution from a handmade novelty to a mass-produced cultural symbol is unusually well documented, and the story is richer and more dramatic than most people realize. The earliest Peeps were created by the Rada Candy Company of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a region with deep German-American Easter traditions. Rada made marshmallow chicks as a special order item in the early 1940s, shaped by hand with pastry tubes and treated more as decorations than candy. Each tray took 27 hours to complete, and up to 80 workers were needed during the Easter season. These early chicks were fragile, labor-intensive, and available only locally, yet they fit perfectly into Pennsylvania's Easter culture of bunnies, eggs, and spring symbols. The transformation came when Just Born, a Bethlehem, Pennsylvania candy company founded by Russian immigrant Sam Born, acquired the Rada Candy Company after the death of its founder in the late 1940s. Sam's son, Bob Born, an engineer, revolutionized the product in 1953 by inventing the Depositor, a machine that could produce a full tray of Peeps in 6 minutes instead of 27 hours. This single innovation turned Peeps from a boutique Easter decoration into an affordable national candy. It standardized their shape and texture. It enabled mass distribution just as post-war consumer culture was booming. By the mid-1950s, Peeps were firmly established as an Easter staple. Once mass production was possible, Just Born expanded Peeps beyond the original yellow chick. In the 1960s, new shapes for other seasons. In the 1980s and 1990s, bunnies, new colors, lavender and blue, were added, and they expanded different flavors. By the 2000s, Peeps had merchandise, decorating kits, and even a Peep lip balm. From the 2010s on, viral experiments about their indestructibility, competitive eating, and national marketing campaigns made Peeps just a national craze. Peeps became not just candy, but a pop culture phenomenon, with 5.5 million produced daily and about 2 billion a year. Several forces made Peeps inseparable from Easter. The visual symbolism, pastel chicks, fit perfectly with spring and Easter imagery. Regional roots, Pennsylvania's German-American Easter traditions, embraced this Peep tradition early, and industrial timing. Their mass production boom aligned with the rise of Easter candy culture in the 1950s and 60s. And the shelf stability. I mean, these Peeps, they go on and on. Their durability made them ideal for baskets, displays, and shipping. And their shape, colors, and texture invited creativity, jokes, and rituals. Peeps succeeded because they were both deeply seasonal and endlessly adaptable. Peeps are the perfect example of how a small regional Easter craft can become a national symbol when technology, culture, and holiday traditions align. Their journey from hand-piped marshmallow chicks to a multi-billion unit brand mirrors the broader commercialization of Easter in the United States. Easter has become one of the largest commercial holidays in the United States, driven by spending on food, candy, gifts, clothing, flour, and decorations. Recent consumer data show that Easter now rivals other major retail seasons in scale and economic impact. U.S. consumers are expected to spend $23.6 billion on Easter this year, and Easter spending reached $24 billion in 2023, marking a 15.4% increase since 2022. Forecasts project Easter spending could reach $36 billion by 2028. These numbers place Easter among the top 4 retail holidays in the U.S., alongside Christmas, Mother's Day, and Valentine's Day. I will say, I still believe that American Easter would be far cooler if we had more rocket battles, grand parade stories of the Passion, exploding carts and fireworks, but we got peeps instead. Easter is a big deal, even in our largely secularized culture. It's still a big deal. But before we wrap up today, and I know I went long, but I'm sorry, Easter is a big day, and it required a big episode. I have to address some foolishness that comes up every year at this time. It's the old myth that Easter is pagan. This wildly popular and hilariously inaccurate conspiracy rears its ugly head every year at Easter. It is almost as regular as the showing of the Ten Commandments on TV. You could set your calendar by it. It's similar to the Christmas is just Saturnalia myth I debunked back in December, and I will tackle the Easter is just a pagan fertility festival right now. A spoiler alert, it isn't. Easter is not a pagan holiday, but the idea that it is, especially the claim that it comes from a goddess named Oster or Ostara, is a modern myth built on one medieval reference, 19th century speculation, and the blending of unrelated spring customs from ancient times. When you look at the historical record, Easter's foundations are unmistakably Jewish and Christian, not pagan. The earliest Christians did not create a new spring festival. They were Jews who believed Jesus was the Messiah, and they celebrated his resurrection in direct continuity with Passover. The New Testament places the crucifixion and resurrection during Passover week. The earliest Christian communities called the feast Pascha, from Hebrew Pesach, Passover. Most languages still use this name, Pascha. Easter is only in German and English. This alone makes a pagan origin impossible. The holiday grew directly out of the Jewish liturgical calendar. The entire argument that Easter is named after a pagan goddess named Oster comes from a single sentence written by the monk Bede in the 8th century. He claimed that Anglo-Saxons once celebrated a spring month named after a goddess named Oster. But no archaeological evidence of such a goddess exists. No other ancient writer mentions her. And even modern scholars note that the evidence for her is extremely limited. Many historians believe that Bede was either mistaken or describing a very local minor folk custom, not the origin of a global Christian feast. As I said earlier, only English and German use the word Easter. If Easter were truly pagan, you would expect pagan names everywhere. Instead, in English, we refer to it as Easter. In German, it's Ostern. And everywhere else, it's Pascha, from Passover. This shows the Easter equals Oster idea is a linguistic coincidence, not a religious inheritance. The date of Easter is Christian and astronomical, not pagan. The Council of Nicaea in AD 325 set the rule. Easter is the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. This was not chosen because of pagan festivals. It was chosen to keep Easter aligned with Passover, which is also tied to the spring moon. The calculation is theological, not pagan. Many cultures used eggs, hares, and spring greenery as symbols of new life long before Christianity. But the Christian meaning of the egg, the tomb, and the resurrection is documented in early Christian communities. The Easter hare appears only in the 16th and 17th century in Germany, not in ancient pagan religion. And the red egg tradition comes from early Christian legends about Mary Magdalene I discussed earlier, not pagan rites. Shared spring imagery does not mean shared religious meaning. Now, why has this myth become so popular? The Easter is pagan claim spread for three main reasons. One, 19th century romantic nationalism, especially the Grimm brothers, revived interest in imagined German gods. Wagner also was a big proponent of this, as were the early Nazis. Modern internet culture repeats simplified claims without checking sources. I mean, there's a lot of that now, so you can't always believe everything you read on the internet. Anti-Christian polemics sometimes use the myth to undermine the holiday's legitimacy. So there's an agenda here. But none of these reflect the actual historical record. So to sum it up, this myth comes from Nazis, trolls, and atheists. Quite a lovely group, right? What the evidence really shows is, when you put the pieces together, the feast is rooted in Passover. The name Easter is a linguistic outlier, not a pagan survival. The symbols were of Easter were reinterpreted through Christian theology very early. The goddess Oster is historically unverified and unrelated to the actual Easter in any way. And the Easter bunny is a late medieval folk custom, not a pagan deity. Easter is a Christian holy day with Jewish foundations, enriched over time by European folk customs, not a baptized pagan festival. Case closed. But no doubt this nonsense will appear next Easter, I am sure. But the truth is this: the real truth of Easter will never die. It cannot die. The tomb is empty, and the risen Christ has conquered death itself. And because this happened, Easter is without a doubt the most important event ever to occur in history, the day Christ rose from the dead. And from Jerusalem to Rome, from Africa to the Americas, from ancient rituals to modern celebrations, the message of Easter continues to echo across the world. The cross is not the end. The tomb is not the end. The story is not over, because the world has been made new, and the light of Easter still shines brightly in the world. Alleluia! Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia. Happy Easter, everyone. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. Next week, we'll be exploring yet another hero from our Christian past. So be sure to tune in. Until then, keep your faith warm, your cappuccino hot and frothy, and have a great week. See you next week for another Saturday Cappuccino with the Saints.